Good, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Waterstone Election 2020 podcast. I'm your host, editor of the Daily Blog, Martyn Bradbury, and joining me live from his Waterstone compound in Alberley, Libertarian political commentator and stuff columnist Damien Grant. Less than 7 weeks until the 2020 New Zealand election and the campaign is in full swing. New Zealand first attacks the Greens attack New Zealand first, National attacks itself. Again, ACT does nothing and still gains popularity, and Labour are frightened they'll have to do something if they gain a majority government. Let's get into it. Labour, 60% on the News Hub poll, 53% on the TVNZ poll. Jacinda this week told supporters not to expect much policy as Labour panic with the realisation that as a majority government, there are no excuses for the lack of transformative change. Jacinda will end up wishing Winston was in Parliament, won't she?
Well, she will, because Winston's been the great excuse.
Right.
Can't do a capital gains tax. All of these things you can
Uncle
blame,
Winston won't let us.
You can blame Winston.
He's the handbrake.
But when Winston is gone, what's the excuse?
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because Grant and Jacinda are naturally very cautious politicians. They don't do great big gestures. They don't do great big policy spiels.
And that people forget that.
Yes,
That is in the tradition of the Labour Party.
Right? Always cautious.
You look at Helen Clark's administration.
Yes.
That was a very conservative, and in a lot of ways, a fiscally prudent.
Right.
For every dollar that they spent, Cullen raised $1.02.
Right.
And they paid down a lot of debt. Now, okay, the Labour government before then was quite radical, but you're right. The Labour Party traditionally has been quite conservative. You go back to even the Kirk administration was quite conservative in a lot of ways. Certainly very,
But do you think that their supporters are going to accept that when if she wins a majority, and that's where it's going right now, if they have a majority government and it's, oh, sorry kids, Christmas is off this year, they're not going to accept it.
No, they will. And in fact, it was from our former comrade Matthew Hooton who made a very insightful comment. People don't care People love Jacinda for who she is,
yes,
not what she does.
No, that's right.
And it is enough for Jacinda to be Jacinda. That's all they want.
Yep.
They don't really care about anything else. And there is a deep satisfaction, I think, for a large part of the left, is just constantly blocking the National Party.
Yes.
It's almost as if the whole narratives have flipped. The purpose of the Labour Party now is to keep National out of office, even though they're not really doing anything different. If you have a look at this government, you think, what would John Key have done? And probably there isn't a lot of difference.
Maybe 5 billion less.
Margins.
Maybe 5 billion less and what he's borrowed. Maybe.
John Key. What did John Key do in a crisis? He borrowed money.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Now we have a bigger crisis, and what does this government do? They borrow vast amounts of money. They're both singing from the same tainted hymn book.
Isn't the problem though with National supporters? They were happy to accept that he really didn't do a hell of a lot because their property valuations were going up more than their actual incomes every single year.
But the same
so
is
National Party
happening
voters were happy with that. But with the Labour supporters, they demand more, don't they? They want to see state housing. They want to see housing issues. They want to see homelessness tackled. Those things aren't being done.
You're wrong. Labour supporters who are on Twitter think that.
That's right. Yep, the activist base, very much.
And remember that your typical Labour voter has actually shifted in the last 2 to 3 months, because you were seeing this $200,000 to $400,000 of new voters coming in.
Yes.
And so suddenly you have a situation where Jacinda is no longer representing the 35%, 36% who voted for her last time.
She's representing 400,000 other National Party voters as well.
So so her constituency has suddenly altered. So and I don't think that necessarily the Labour Party has changed. I think that the electorate has moved.
Do you think then that Labour they're not going to put any policy up for the election for 7 weeks next 6 months?
But why would you? Because any policy you put up gives oxygen for the opposition to criticise it. The government's whole reason for being now is Jacinda. That's it. And a policy only detracts from that.
Sure. So do you think that because it seems very keen that they're gonna run on the COVID response, we save the country, give us another 3 years, and that has a powerful message running into the 7 weeks of the election, because things in America and Australia and Britain are just getting completely out of hand now. They're in a shadow of mountain of dead, and it doesn't matter what Jacinda promises, they're going to vote Jacinda, yeah?
Well, I did the classic thing last night because my car broke down in Parnell and I had to get an Uber back. And I asked the Uber driver, are you looking forward to the election?
Yep.
And that is exactly what he said. He made reference to what was happening in the United States. Now,
Right.
I had discounted what you were saying.
Yep.
But I mean, again, for the second time in a row, I'm having to concede that you might be right. It's
National,
so
I
painful.
know. National, 25% on News Hub, 32% on TVNZ poll. What on earth are they doing in Auckland Central by turning on their own candidate after a month of self-mutilation? When are they going to stop slashing themselves?
Well, no, it's all part of a brilliant plan.
Oh, I want to hear it, please.
It's brilliant.
Victory by 1,000 cuts.
No, we discussed, or you outlined a strategy last week.
Yep.
And clearly, National Party have taken it up.
Good, I'm glad they're listening. What
I
did I
mean,
say?
They put up a really weak candidate, or in this case, self-sabotage their candidate in an attempt to block Chloe Swarbrick. That's the plan. They are driving National Party voters. Now, your traditional National Party voter is not going to vote for the Greens.
No.
So by making a complete cluster of what's happening in Auckland Central, they'll boost Helen White, not Chloe Swarbrick out. It's all part of a brilliant plan.
Doesn't this just give more evidence to a narrative that the National Party are just imploding? Do you honestly think they'll get over 30%? Honestly. Hand on heart, honestly.
Yeah, I think they'll get more.
Oh, how? Where?
Because I think a lot of those 200,000 to 300,000 votes that went to Labour are soft. But then again, and remember last time they got down to 21%.
That's right.
There was a lot of other right-wing parties to choose from, right?
Yep.
So I think that's part of what is going to, and a lot of National Party voters are not going to be happy voting for ACT because of the libertarian elements to it.
Yep.
So I think that's probably going to save Labor, going to save National from a complete implosion. But I have seen some gossip on Twitter that even Dan Bidwire in Northcote is
I've heard the exact same bloody thing, that he's in trouble. If National are in trouble on the North Shore of Auckland, they are in trouble.
It's a bit like Remuera in 1987,
right?
Isn't it? We're going back to those days,
right?
It's frightening.
What does Judith need to do to turn around? She had a very good day today, arguing that Jacinda's not going to do any policy and she's going to coast on the COVID, which I think seems to be pretty self-apparent. But she's got nothing?
The population simply don't care. National need to... Well, actually, I don't know... This election is outside of National's control.
Right.
Something has to happen bad for people to lose faith in this current government. And the old adage that oppositions don't win them, governments lose them.
Yeah.
And this government isn't they're putting a few foots wrong, but nothing significant that's going to cause the electorate to lose confidence in them. So what can National do? I don't think there's anything National can do. The only one thing National can do is convince potential National voters that they are a credible alternative. And that is the one thing they are not doing. I mean, they're changing leaders, they're sending stupid emails around about...
Could they lose Auckland Central?
Yes.
Greens, 5.7 on News Hub, 5% on TVNZ's poll. They released a dense, and it was a dense, 52-page manifesto. And the electorate responded to that 52-page dense manifesto by dropping them to just over the 5% threshold. How and why have they alienated so many voters?
Probably because if you've got to look... Why put your head in the position of the Greens. They genuinely care about this stuff. They are serious politicians, or they care seriously and deeply about the issues. And so for them, being in power is not enough. They want to do something. And if you care about this stuff, you're going to write it down. You're going to document it.
Sure.
So I think
don't you think being able to sell the sizzle is an important element of any modern political party?
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, though, give the Greens some credit. because they are true believers.
Yep.
I mean, they're mad and they're emotionally unhinged, but they clearly believe in.
Well,
what's
they do.
I mean, they're a bit like the 1080 people.
But
they are passionate about what
we'll
they
get into
believe
them.
in.
Don't you worry. But 52-page manifesto without being like just maybe,
and it doesn't make electoral
points,
sense because
maybe
the sort of
10
people,
points.
the sort of people who are going to read that are already in the tank.
Already.
You know.
So they've got no one to blame but themselves, surely, as they
and
teeter on the edge of whether or not they're going to come back.
There's some good stuff in that, you know. No sugary water at sports events.
Oh no! Look at lowering the voting age to 16. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that I completely agree with.
It's good.
But
Compulsory
surely you
voting
would
for
think
prison
maybe
inmates.
just like a 5 points, just 5 points would be more effective
I know
than
what
a
that-
52-page manifesto.
James, I have the solution. There is they're very experienced, very talented political operative recently just released from the National Party.
Matthew Hooton would be perfect. Matthew Hooton, give him a call. I know he's looking for work right now. He's got nothing else going. Maybe Matty Hooton can save them. New Zealand First, 2% on News Hub, 2% on TVNZ poll.
Dead.
Spent the last week attacking the Greens.
Nobody cares. Dead.
But the woke fairy dust, the money falling, the unicorns, the flying pigs.
Oh my God, who came up with that?
Oh, they think the Brexit bad boys.
That is
all
terrible.
that did, didn't it make you, if you were sitting on the fence looking at that attack, you would have gone, oh, I better make sure I party vote Labour to make sure the Greens aren't in there. All they've done is build
understand.
votes for Labour.
I mean, I don't know why that is. Don't go back to their base of picking on Maoris and Indians.
Because immigration's closed. He's got nothing. How is he going to jump up and down about immigrants if the borders are closed
No,
and
he
you
could
don't
claim
have
that
lots
as
of
a
people coming
success.
in?
He could say in the last 3 months there had been no people from Pakistan come in, and he can claim that as a win.
I just don't think New Zealand responds to that race baiting any longer. We are a more cosmopolitan people, aren't we?
It was something that was because you have a look at when Don Brash came up with his Aurea speech and to
New Zealand was a pretty insular place, right?
No, but that really hit the numbers. And then about 10 years later, he tried to pull the same trick with ACT, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And in that relatively short period of time,
People had actually
that issue
matured,
had
and
died.
gone,
And that was, but part of Winston's other problem is that yes, he's been talking about this stuff for so long, but when he
what's
has
he
the
done?
levers of power, he doesn't actually do anything about
And
it.
this
So
is
he
and
has
this is their
credibility.
fundamental problem, isn't it? They seek and source help, particularly monetarily, from large provincial industries who are the very same industries who are exploiting
Who
that
need
migrant labour, right? So they've got no interest.
Come
They've got
on.
no interest
But
in actually closing those
They
floodgates
provide opportunities to those workers.
for
They are
those
not
exploited workers,
They
so
are
that
not
New Zealanders
exploiters.
can't get
No.
those jobs. Yeah, exploitation,
exploited.
terrible exploitation.
Give it a
ACT,
rest.
3.3% on News Hub, 5% on TVNZ. David just has to say guns, guns, guns now, isn't it? Is it between now and the 7 weeks, every time he opens his mouth, guns, 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 guns.
No, we've also got we have a big environmental
We have
push.
guns and, yep.
No, because we care very much about the birds and the forests.
Isn't this about shooting birds in the forest?
It's more about 1080.
Right, oh, okay, 1080. Yeah,
No,
yeah. So, what crazy new ideas
whistle,
do you have
dog
on
whistle.
1080 now? Is
Uh,
ACT's policy to ban 1080?
no, we don't. It's a bit like cannabis, right?
Yeah.
We don't have an official policy on cannabis because if we did, we'd lose Epsom. So so we just kind of indicate that. Well, you kind of know what we think, but we're not going to say it explicitly.
It's like the age of the end of innocence now for David Seymour, isn't it? From principled politician to sellout populist. So you're banning 1080, more guns and creches. What other crazy things do you now do because you're a populist party?
Well, you look at our mental health policy.
Oh God, what is it?
Well, basically, we're going to spend the $1.9 billion better than the government has. And, it's kind of like a voucher system, I get it. My preference would be, that $1.9 billion, let's just not spend it. But, I mean...
Everyone's spending money, even ACT.
I know.
Hang your head
But
in shame.
mind you, you got to remember, ACT has never really been a libertarian party.
Not anymore. No.
Well, it never really was. I mean, it had its origins
in the free market liberalisation, but it wasn't strictly libertarian, was it?
It wasn't libertarian, and it come back from the Roger Douglas, and Roger Douglas really believed, in this.
Oh yeah.
He believed in the nudge concept before the nudge concept became cool, and this, compulsory superannuation, all this sort of stuff. So, ACT really believes, I think, in its heart, that they can use the state to help people make better decisions, as opposed to, say, the National Party or the Labour Party that want to make the decisions for them.
Right.
But they don't have the core libertarian belief we're just going to get completely out. There are a lot of libertarians in ACT, but ACT is not. They're not going on a libertarian platform.
We are seeing ACT jumping up at every single poll coming out now. Surely there is a feeling within ACT that they might actually be able to get 6-7% this election.
Yes, they can, but also don't forget, as ACT becomes credible, they're going to come under more scrutiny.
Right.
I mean, there's this scurrilous left-wing attack blog, I understand, is working up some garbage.
Oh, terrible things. So funny.
And
Crazy.
that's fair, because suddenly if ACT is going to become a significant player, then they deserve to come under more scrutiny.
Yes.
And scrutiny is there's going to be some negative stuff come out about ACT, absolutely. So I think, I don't think ACT are going to hit those sort of numbers, and I think the reason is that you have a lot of people indicating yes, they're going to, but these are National Party voters thinking about voting ACT for the first time, telling the pollsters are going to vote about ACT for the first time. Some of that vote is going to be soft, exactly like I'm saying about the Labour Party vote is soft, because they're the former National Party voters telling the pollsters are going to vote Labour. In the polling booth, a lot of them are going to come home. So my pick is Seymour will win absent, but I think the current polling is optimistic.
Do you think that there is going to be a problem moving on to the future? Let's say Labour does take it. We're looking at 2023. The gun elements within side ACT will they not, as a bottom line, to go into coalition with National, repealing the gun laws?
Come on,
mate. And that's going to be a major problem, isn't it?
I mean, you just think about your own side of the aisle.
Yep.
You think about all of your frustrated comrades.
So frustrated.
All right? And they want the government to do all of these things.
Everything.
Okay? And you look at those, how many of those frustrated comrades are thinking about voting for Judith Collins?
Not many, if any.
Right. So I don't understand why you think it's going to be so significantly different within ACT.
Because I don't think that the groups within the left who want the re-education camps as much as I do, I don't think they're significant enough in number as you have in ACT now. You've got a very small boat with a lot of gun people in there.
Yes, and after a quick round robin, there will be less of them. That's a good thing about gun people. They kind of natural selection operates reasonably fast.
We will
you don't need
cauterize.
multiple generations. You just need a grumpy afternoon.
We are on Magic Talk Radio, 2 p.m. this Friday. My good self, great Damien Grant, Sean Plunkett, and the one, the only, ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Hooton will be joining us. Magic Talk, 2 p.m. this Friday. Stay tuned for that. Our next election podcast is Tuesday next week. We're now going weekly through until the end of the election campaign. See you next week.